Hello and welcome to this episode of the 2 Cent Sport Podcast. My name is JR. That's short for John Rogowski, as my friends and family know me. I'm here with my co-host, the marvelous Joey Thompson. How you doing, Marv?
Hey, I'm doing good, JR. How about yourself?
Doing well, living the dream, man. So just before we get started, I want to let you all know this podcast is brought to you by Ringer. That's RINGR.com. You can go ahead and visit ringer.com/2 cent pod to get your podcast started and save 25%. I also want to mention that you guys should jump on and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. That's at 2 Cent Sports Pod. Follow us along during the week. We want to hear your take on things and all that's happening in the sports world. I want to start with this. The NCAA tournament has been on the forefront of everybody's minds lately. A lot of good basketball there. Even if you're not a college basketball fan like myself, don't watch a lot of it, but you really sit down and watch it when it comes time for the tournament. And unfortunate that Zion's already knocked out. He's been a big draw for the tournament. They went deep, but that freshman thing always seems to come back and bite Duke. They just can't get it over the top because of that lack of experience. But it's time to move on and start thinking about the NBA for Zion as he's declared for the draft. He will certainly be the number one pick. Where he lands is anyone's guess. That's up to the lottery. Most likely the Knicks, as they locked up the worst record in the NBA. Congratulations to them. Who thought you'd say congratulations for the worst record in the NBA? But it's a big deal. You see Zion, and most of you watched him, ratings were way up for this tournament because of him, more than likely. Ratings were up over 20% from the last tournament, I believe. He certainly jumps off the screen, and there's been a big debate in the sports world now. Is Zion a top 20 player in the NBA when he enters the day of? And I really had to sit down and think about this one because, to me, top 20 in the NBA, and he hasn't played a game. And I said, initially, no way he's a top 20 player. And I don't think he's going to be skill-wise and stamina-wise. NBA's 82 games. College is more like 40. So you're getting more than double the games. It's a big adjustment. So if you take, but I had to go back and I really had to sit down and think about it. If you take out the adjustment period, you got to break down, okay, what makes a top 20 player? We can't forget the NBA is a business, right? It's all about revenue. Tickets, the TV deal, national TV placement to get your brand out there as a team. That's a big deal. I can make an argument that Zion's top 5 in that. The only players that are going to move the needle for viewership and franchises better are Kevin Durant, Giannis, LeBron, Steph, and James Harden. So I would actually have him at number 6 for that metric. The day that Zion shows up, he's going to make your franchise $500 million more valuable, similar to LeBron James and how he did that for Cleveland. And of course, you have to look at the player. Their potential for development, which his potential is skyrocketing. We've almost never seen anything like him before. And of course, the end game that ties in all this is championships. Can a guy win you championships? Now that's to be seen for Zion, but I certainly think that he has the ability and he will win championships. And that may take time. That may take several years. He may end up in a dumpster fire situation like the Suns. I don't know why they can't win any games, but that's a whole different subject. But when I look at it, I absolutely think he's in the top 20. There's 9 untouchable players in the NBA that are certainly better than him. Beyond that, I think you can really get into a lot of debate. And I want to bring you in here, Marv. Zion Williamson, when he enters the NBA, where do you have him slated to be in terms of the NBA hierarchy, let's call it?
I have him possibly top 10. I agree with you in every thing you just mentioned. I think he is a top 6 player in the NBA. The guy is just, he's amazing. You watch him play, brings so much energy to the team. During the time that he missed while he was injured because of the freak accident, while he was with the PGs in that game versus NC, you notice how the team, for some reason, became stale. They ended up losing that game. Then they went on and struggled all the games that Zion missed. The moment Zion stepped on the court again, he came out there, like his teammates were feeding off of him. He dropped like 30 points in back-to-back nights. Like, just the way the guy just carries himself, comes out there, plays with a lot of passion and energy, it's automatically, I think that drives his stock up. And I think the moment that he gets drafted and whatever team gets him, automatically they're going to be tops in jersey sales, tickets. He's going to make, like you said, he's going to make that team at least 500 million right off the bat. And that's not even including his shoe sales. He's going to make, if let's say he signs with Nike, even regardless after what happened to him with that freak accident with the Nike shoes, I think that if Nike gives him a big contract, he's going to help Nike make a lot of money as well. Same kind of situation as, you know, when LeBron came out of high school and he signed a $90 million contract with Nike, and then Nike just started selling his shoes like hotcakes. So I think Zion has that kind of influence because of the way he plays the game, and that's pretty much it. I think he's gonna make a major impact to whatever team drafts him.
It's funny you mentioned the shoe deal. I'm hearing that Zion's shoe deal is going to be more lucrative than LeBron's. I'm not sure if that's going to be an upfront payment like that 90 mil that you mentioned, but it's supposed to be huge. And I hear the naysayers. I've heard a lot of naysayers. I want to throw this in there that, the Duke should have lost the 2 games before, and that they actually lost in the Elite Eight. And yeah, they should have. And, Zion doesn't make that big of an impact, right? Well, that's not correct, because the college game, even playing with the best coach like Coach K, is very restrictive to superstars. The floor is a little bit smaller. You got to play through a system, and there's just a lot of restriction, like I was saying, for players that have great ability and that they really jump to the next level, and it actually almost helps their game. Unlike where the NFL, you jump to the next level and you have a lot of adaptation that takes a lot out of your game. Well, the NBA actually injects something into your game when you get to that free flowing, less physical, less systematic game that's really going to boost Zion. And what I saw 2 things on all of the games, and then one specifically to the Michigan State game that they lost. The first thing that I saw is Zion jumps off the tape. Anyone watching, whether they're a basketball fan or not, they'll be like, wow, that guy's different. I mean, look at him. He's like 280 pounds. He's 6'8", and he moves like a gazelle. He might be the fastest player on the floor at any given time. It's amazing. Anybody can see that. You don't have to be a sports fan to say, wow, this guy's different. And then the next thing that I want to say, they lost the Michigan State game because he deferred too much. And that may be his biggest weakness in deferring, because RJ Barrett, who people are really high on, and I think he's a good player, but he totally biffed that game is what I saw. He took over the game. He took stupid shots. And so that was a bad look for him. But the bad look for Zion was not having the ball. So the reason that I would contend that Duke lost that game was because he didn't have the ball enough. He didn't take over. What were you seeing on tape there, Marvin, in the tournament?
Yeah, I thought that he was being a little bit too passive. He wanted to, share the wealth with his teammates. But I think what he should have did was, continue to be the aggressive player that he's been most of the year, where he just takes over games and just dominates on his own. And I think he was trying to, I guess maybe show off a little bit more of his game to scouts before he, entered the NBA. And I think that kind of ended up being, part of his downfall, or at least Duke's downfall, because if Zion would have took over like the way he did it in the end of the UCF game, it would have been a different story. We would have been talking about the Duke Blue Devils playing in the Final Four today.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So like I said, I had to sit down and really think about this, like I said, when I put him in the top 20. So I want to break down the list a little bit to about where I have him. I don't have him in an exact number, but I do have him, and I want to make the case for this. So we have the case for why he is top 20. You have 9 players in the NBA who I consider the untouchables. You can't put a rookie in and say, okay, a rookie's better than you now. Kevin Durant, Giannis, LeBron, Steph, James Harden, Anthony Davis, Damian Lillard, Klay Thompson, and I hesitantly put Kawhi Leonard. That's a different topic for a different day. But those are your top 9 in the NBA that are just untouchable. You can't say that Zion is better. But based on the metrics you can get into that I mentioned, which was the revenue, the championships, and the future potential, You can get into it with a few of these players, and I just want to make a couple small cases for Zion against these players, why he's could be near the top 10. Russell Westbrook. Now, I'm not going to argue that Zion's going to come in and be more skilled, but Russell Westbrook's proven he does not play well with others. He does drive revenue, though, but he can't win championships. And his potential's out. He's done. He can't shoot. He is what he is. That's where he's at. So I'm not going to say Zion's absolutely better, but he's certainly in the conversation. Embiid, always injured. Kyrie Irving, flaky, injured. Paul George, his game is tremendously better, but again, he doesn't move the revenue. He doesn't move tickets. He doesn't make me want to sit down and watch on my TV. He's not a championship caliber player. I think his mental is a little bit not there. And unfortunately for him, he plays with Russell Westbrook. Jimmy Butler, again, head case, drama, going to be on like 4 teams in a couple years. I don't want any part of him. I was happy when the Bulls traded him away. I mean, I wouldn't say happy, but I would say that everyone was like, oh my God, Bulls are getting rid of Jimmy Butler. I was like, whatever. Chris Paul, again, better player, old, injured. So that rounds up your top 15. And then to round up the top 20 right now, I would absolutely take him over Devin Booker, Victor Oladipo, Karl Anthony Towns, Ben Simmons, who I loved originally, but doesn't seem to care much about basketball. He has no jump shot still. How you can play professionally shooting a basketball and not be able to shoot it with all the time and resources that NBA players have is way beyond me. And then I have rounding out the top 20, Donovan Mitchell. Marv, did I miss anybody? Is there something I got wrong here?
Did you mention James Harden?
I did mention James Harden. He was number 5. He's my number 5 player in the NBA. I did list everybody in order. But did I miss anybody? Is he a top 20 player in your book definitively?
Yeah, I believe so. And if he definitely gets drafted into a team in the Eastern Conference, that might even catapult him even higher. It all depends because, in the East, there's a certain amount of players. The majority of the ones that you listed outside of the top 10 are players that are in the East, if you think about it. And the only one that really you only listed I think 2 players from the East in your top 9, which is Kawhi and what's his name? Giannis. Those are the 2 you listed, I believe, in the East. So
that's correct. Everyone else is in the West.
Yep. If Zion goes to the East, that could also catapult him up higher because, I mean, whether there's skilled big man is there in the East that would be able to compete with him other than Joel Embiid, who's always half of the time injured, like you mentioned as well. I mean, he spends half the time on the injured reserve or on the bench, recovering from injury. So, I mean, we've yet to see his full potential because he's never playing a full season. And Ben Simmons, like you mentioned, he's another guy who cares a lot for, how I say, Hollywood more than being a great basketball player. So his mind is somewhere else. He's dating the Kardashian as well, so maybe that's kind of stunning him. And then, let me see, Donovan Mitchell. I like Donovan Mitchell a lot. He's brought some life into the Utah Jazz, life that they didn't have for a few years, because even when they had Gordon Hayward, they were, a meh team. But then once Spider Mitchell came, he brought a lot of excitement, and people started paying attention to Utah a little bit more because of him. So I like your list, and I think Zion is a top 10, 20 player right off the bat. And if he gets drafted to an East Coast team, he will be before the year is up next year, he'll be a top 10 player.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That's something that I missed, and I appreciate you bringing that up. The Eastern Conference will certainly help catapult him into stardom even further and really help his adjustment in the game because the West is really a tough place to play. Mm-hmm. And you make a great point on, I just want to circle back to Simmons. There's 2 types of players. There's players that love the game and there's players that love what the game provides for them. And I know I was telling you I was hyped on Ben Simmons and I still would be hyped on his potential, but he certainly doesn't seem to care about basketball. And Mitchell I like a lot too, but he's more of a evolved Allen Iverson or Russell Westbrook. He's kind of I see him as a hybrid of the 2, where he has a really good mindset and he's able to share the ball, but he's a little bit should we call it spastic? He's a little all over the place,
Yeah,
and he's a great creator as a player, but
call me
he's
crazy.
not. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Call me crazy, but I think he reminds me a lot of Dwayne Wade, just his style of play that he takes it in a lot. And his shot, is very, like you said, sporadic, where there'll be games where he's on and hitting multiple threes, and then there's games where he can't hit a three. So,
Yeah, I think you're right, and Wade brings to mind. I think that's a great comparison, and I think this would summarize what we're saying perfectly. He plays reckless, and sometimes that's good, and it really pays off, and sometimes you're missing threes, like you said, because you're unable to focus in. And what we look at Dwayne Wade, he's been largely ineffective for the last 3-4 years, and so his career basically ended. We won't say ended, but in terms of his ability to be a star player and a super impactful, it ended when he was about 29 to 30 years old, because that style of play takes a huge toll on your body. And we saw that happen with Wade, and I love Wade, and he's an all-timer. But his shelf life was a little bit shorter than some of the other players. Marv, we're getting into comparisons now. I want to know who you can compare Zion to. I'm not a big fan of the comparison game, but since we're there, who can you compare Zion to in terms of NBA present and past?
all right. It's a very good question. I haven't thought about it too much, but just off the top of my head, I would compare Zion to a Charles Barkley with the same impact. Now, people may think Charles Barkley, a lot of the youngins, because a lot of youngins didn't watch Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley they see today is a big fat guy who cracks a lot of jokes, but Charles Barkley was a monster early on in his career. And Charles Barkley was, like, he's been rated one of the top players ever. He just unfortunately didn't win a championship because, of course, he faced off against Jordan almost every other year. He was coming out of the West when he played for Phoenix, and it was impossible for him to win anything while he was in Phoenix. But I think he, just with the size and his style of play, he reminds me of Barkley.
Yeah, I love that comparison. I think he has a lot of traits similar to Barkley. Like you said, a lot of guys didn't see him play. They're too young now to have seen him play, but he was a monster. The one thing that I'll say is that he has a lot more speed and quickness. I wouldn't say quickness. Charles was quick, but I would say speed in the fast break. He's more similar to LeBron in that area. But I think Zion is kind of a one of one. It's really hard to compare him. And that's why I said I like to shy away from that. But since we were there, I said, let's take it there. Let's see who we got. And I do really like that comparison. I think that was an excellent comparison there. I want to stay in the NBA, but I want to shift to this. KD to the Knicks. We talked about it a while ago, and Marv was predicting it. Marv was saying his sources had KD going to the Knicks, that it was a done deal, that he was house shopping and doing all that, and that he was going to finish out the season with the Warriors, probably win a championship, and shift over to New York. That's no longer really underground speculation, as some major sources are coming out saying that KD to the Knicks is a done deal. Bet your house. It's going to happen. And Kyrie's likely to follow, is how NBA execs feel. Marv, I'm going to let you take it away on this one. What are you hearing?
All right. So in the last 2 weeks, a lot of bombshells, even though they're not bombshells to me, of course, but a lot of bombshells have been dropping in the news lately. First off, Bill Simmons, he went on a radio show with, I believe it was Mike Francesca, can't pronounce his last name, but anyways, he's a New York media guy out there, does radio shows all the time. He went out there and he said, bet your house on it. Everything he's hearing is KD to New York is a done deal. Same thing was echoed by Rich Bucher. He went out and called it a done deal. He says a wrap. There's
Rick
no
Bucher,
other.
by the way.
Yeah, there you go, Rick Bucher.
Let me correct you. I just want people to know, because that's a big name, Rick Bucher.
Yeah, Rick Bucher is a big time reporter, and he's been in the game for years. So he's very, very respectable guy, and he doesn't, stick his neck out for just anything. So when he's saying it, it's got to be true. Then Howard Beck, another respected journalist from New York, he spoke on the Rich Eisen show actually yesterday on April 5th, and he mentioned that every executive in the NBA, every front office person you speak to, everyone believes KD's going to the Knicks, and it's pretty much over. He's never seen something so definitive, and it's pretty much a wrap. So I don't know what else to say. All we really got to wait is till July 1st. July 1st, we will get a more clear answer where he's leaning towards. I do know is that KD a couple days ago posted a link on his IG or a picture about him doing or recording his show that's going to be appearing on ESPN Plus, where he's discussing, about businesses and whatnot. And they have, a lot of discussions about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, that's
and stuff like
the
that.
boardroom.
Correct.
KD's doing that on ESPN Plus. Yep.
And he said it's going to be he's going to be filming that this summer in New York City. Now, New York City is where the Knicks play. 1, 2, that's where his 35 Ventures company is based out of in Manhattan. Remember when I mentioned he was buying 2 properties out in Westchester and Manhattan? One of those properties was supposed to be used for this business, which he is going to be using it for that. It's just kind of, a lot of people may be asking, well, why is he doing it in New York? Well, if he has all his businesses there, New York is one of the biggest media capitals and business centers in the world. Of course, he's going to go ahead and sign with the Knicks because of that. Because KD at last in December, I believe it was. I pulled up a quote, and I repeat, I was reading exactly for word. I'm going to read exactly word for word what KD said on that quote. He mentioned that he's looking to stack money, and he wants to see what he could do outside of business because, at the end of the day, he wants to get paid. And the only other, I can't really think of any other places other than Los Angeles and New York where he's going to get, paid the way he wants to be paid outside of basketball. And he said he wants to go somewhere where he can play basketball, enjoy basketball, and also be involved with helping develop players and seeing players develop. Now, if you think about it, the only 2 teams that come to mind that have youth and also have a life outside of basketball where he can make a lot of money is Los Angeles and New York. And that would leave the Clippers. Now, if you think about the Clippers are going to have about a good $54 million roughly in salary cap. They're really heavily favored to sign Kawhi Leonard. You sign Kawhi Leonard to a max deal, they won't have enough to sign KD straight up. KD wants to get paid. So if that happens, Kawhi Leonard goes to the Clippers. I think they'll sign another guy like a Jimmy Butler maybe, or someone, or Kemba Walker to round out their last $20 million they got left of cap. And that only leaves the New York Knicks, which have about $74 million in salary cap, which they can absorb 2 max players, which would mean $38 million of KD and I believe $34 million of Kyrie Irving's contract, which if you do the math, that equals up to $72 million. Now, they would leave him with $2 million, and then I think they'll find a way to round out the rest of the roster. But anyways, going back, not to get off too much subject off of this, it's a done deal. Everyone in the media is now, the rumors were silent for a while, but as we get closer to July, the rumors are becoming louder and louder and louder. And when there's smoke, there's got to be a fire. And for sure, a lot of these guys, once top name guys are reporting this, it has to be some truth to the rumors.
I certainly agree that where there's smoke and there's a lot of it, there's a fire somewhere, and we're going to see that fire in July. I've been hearing both sides of the story, and I'm really sitting on the fence about it. How could KD do that? How could he leave Golden State? And I see that point where you're in a basketball paradise. You're in Silicon Valley where there's a lot of business, not that basketball business that you were talking about, but there's, it's the center of tech in this country. You're winning. But I see the other side of the coin. KD, he kind of jumped on the bandwagon. He did. It's not kind of. He jumped on the bandwagon of a team that was 73-9. And nobody, including I'm included in this group, we don't respect his titles the way we respect a Jordan or a LeBron or somebody else when they did it as the number 1 guy. And I don't think he foresaw that when he went to Golden State. I think it was really short-sighted because the backlash was instant when he signed with Golden State.
Bad.
But it was really bad. It was horrible. So I don't think he saw that, actually. I think he was just a young kid who had been kind of isolated and sheltered, a mama's boy in Oklahoma City. And I don't mean that as a negative. I just mean that as a fact in terms of how his behavior was. And, he was a little sheltered, isolated, not in the big market. So he wasn't really thinking, or his friends didn't lead him in the right direction, or his advisors, whoever was telling him. And I wouldn't say it's the wrong direction, but I don't think like I said, I don't think he saw that coming. I think he was such a loved and liked player universally by all fans that he didn't think that could happen to him, and it certainly did. At the end of the day, he's a millennial. He's conquered this chapter of his life. He's won the championships. He's not going to retire as somebody who, like a Barkley or a Malone, who never won a championship. So he's accomplished that much. So kudos to him for that. But I certainly think there's validity or a thought process that says, yeah, go play in New York. It's a big challenge, but millennials like big challenges. For all the bad rap that we get as millennials, we like a big challenge, and I think it's something that he wants to go out and conquer, and good for him. And it will certainly make the NBA a lot more interesting. I'm really looking forward to the potential of KD and Kyrie playing together. I mean, those are the two biggest drama kings in the NBA aside from LeBron. So it will be really interesting for them to play together and be scrutinized by the New York media. They're going to be very moody, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I know you're looking forward to it as a Knicks fan. Your team is no longer going to be a dumpster fire.
And to piggyback off of what you were saying, the truth be told, once he joined the Warriors, a lot of respect was thrown out the window. People start caring for what KD did, because at the end of the day, they said he joined a 73-9 team. So once KD started winning with them, no one respected him for the MVPs he won, nor the championships in Golden State. So, being a millennial, like you said, he wants to prove everyone wrong. So what what I got from his thinking process, basically from my source back in July of last year, he mentioned KD wants to do what Cristiano Ronaldo did when he left the stacked Real Madrid soccer team and joined Juventus in Italy, and to prove that he can win on a team that's less stacked. And that's what KD wants to do. He wants to go to a team where he is the man, he is the best player, and he wants to prove that he can lead that team from the darkness and losing atmosphere, and turn them into a winning team, a winning culture, turn that team around. That way he knows if he can do that, that's going to seal his legacy, and then people will start respecting him again. Because think about it, when's the last time the Knicks won any playoff games? That was 2013. The season went 54 and I think it was 24 or something like that. They won 54 games that year. And that was the best the Knicks ever been probably in the last 30 years. Well, at least since the 90s. So, this is a big deal. The Knicks have missed the playoffs for 6 straight years. And for someone like KD to come to New York and take them to the playoffs and even win a playoff game, they will build a statue for that man outside of Madison Square Garden. He'll be a legend. And that will do a lot for his legacy, and it would, probably put him in the same conversation maybe as LeBron if he could win a championship with the Knicks. If it was a championship, then people could start saying, well, maybe he is the best player in the NBA. So, I mean, it's a lot to digest and swallow. But, I mean, I think, like you said, he's a guy who's been sheltered. He's not used to all this criticism that he took for joining a winning team, because maybe he thought, well, I remember back then when LeBron joined the Heat, KD was like, oh, well, I would never do that. And then he went and did it himself. So I'm sure that was like a backlash. He took a big backlash for that. And now he wants to rectify that and fix his image and possibly go down as one of the best if he can pull it off, which I'm hoping for the Knicks' sake, for the NBA's sake, and for my health's sake. I hope everything turns out if he joins the Knicks.
I was just going to finish with this. I think you make a great point, but beyond the legacy, beyond the championships, I think Kevin Durant is a human being, and I think he just wants to be loved again. He just wants to be loved again. If you look at it like an approval rating, like we do for our presidents, Kevin Durant's approval rating was soaring when he was on OKC. It was 80, 90%. I've never met a person who didn't like Kevin Durant. I don't mean the person, I mean the player and the brand of Kevin Durant. But now, I don't think anybody has a problem with the person of Kevin Durant, but we have a problem with the player and a problem with the brand that he's associated himself with, which is just kind of piggybacking. And I think his approval rating's below 20%. Nobody wants to see the Warriors win anymore. It's just Warrior fatigue. And it's a great product, but it's kind of feels purchased, bought instead of built. And people just aren't feeling that vibe. They don't like it, including myself. So he can take that 80, 90% approval rating back up from that 20%. And he's just a human being and he wants to be loved. And there's nothing wrong with that. The New York move would be a great move for him. I want to shift to this. The Rookie of the Year debate's really heating up as Trae Young heats up. He's been on fire lately, winning games in overtime for his team, making the pass, making the shot. But we still have Luka Doncic, an excellent player. And he's really, body of work-wise, he's still playing extremely well. He's got his grown man game fully signed, sealed, and delivered in Dallas. He'll be there for years to come. Marv, who do you have as Rookie of the Year right now in the NBA?
See, early on, I was really intrigued by Luka Doncic. I watched a few of his games, and I was just like in awe how great this guy was or is. And then as the season progressed, Trae Young, he started getting better. He just like a switch. He just flipped a switch, and boom, he was on. Like, he started hitting these game-winning shots, dropping 40, 30 points. Like, he's been doing, highlight after highlight. And he started gaining my attention. And, being in the East Coast, I get to see a lot of, more of Atlanta games. So I started seeing a lot more of Trae Young. And at first I was, kind of a Trae Young doubter. I didn't think he should have went that high. And you know this for a fact because, we used to talk about who we think was the best player in the draft this year. And I would always, say, oh, well, I wouldn't take Trae Young because he don't play no defense. But as I started watching him play, man, that boy can play. He's like a young Stephen Curry out there. He's not afraid. He takes the big shots and big moments, and he's been performing clutch plays after play in the games that Atlanta has won. So over time, I've, turned my pick from Doncic over to Trae Young. And I think, because the NBA is, is how I say, what have you done for me lately type of league. People will remember what Trae Young has been doing as of late. And maybe since he's, he's hot right now and he's on fire, that may be enough to win him the Rookie of the Year award.
Yeah, I certainly hear what you're saying. It is just like MVP, the NBA is largely a popularity contest for a lot of their awards. It's really just, oh, hey, what have you done for me lately? And what's fancy and flashy on the tape? I hear that. And here's where I'm at on this subject. As you know, as I've told you from way before the draft, Trae Young would have been my number one pick over everyone. That's turned out to be a very correct assessment. He should have been the number one pick. I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to keep saying that. If you would have put him on the Suns with Devin Booker, you'd have Splash Brothers West. Or Southwest, I guess, because it's Southwest in Arizona. We already have Splash Brothers West. But you definitely would have had the Splash Brothers. And here's the thing, like you said, and to your point, he doesn't play any defense. You're right. He's a little undersized. He has a tough time with defense. Guess who has a tough time with defense too? Steph Curry. Guess who wins championships? Steph Curry. That's always been my point. Defense in the NBA, if you're a star player that can drop 30, 40 any given night and are a threat once you cross the half-court line to shoot, your defense be damned. Nobody cares about defense at that point because you put other defensive players around you, because what you do is you open up the entire floor for the rest of your teammates when you're on offense as well as for yourself. So you've just revolutionized your team and revolutionized your franchise. So I'm 100% on the Trae Young bandwagon, as I always have been. But when I look at the full body of work for the Rookie of the Year, I look at it from start to finish. It's a whole year. Rookie of the Year, not Rookie of the Month. And I'm going to give that to Doncic. He has a grown man basketball game. He showed up day one as the man for his team, which surprised me a little bit. I really didn't know what to think of him. I never, as you know, Marv, I've never been one to predict European players. They're a tough one for me to wrap my head around. But he's certainly been somebody who has shown up and played from day one as a star, as a budding superstar. So I love both the players, but I'm giving this is the way I look at it. I'm giving Rookie of the Year to Luka. And if I had to start my franchise tomorrow for the future value of each player, I think they're both going to be superstars. But I'm taking Trae Young because of that deadly 3-point that he can pull up from anywhere and be effective. It just changes the way it's changed the way basketball's been played, and it changes the way your team is able to play. I look at it similar to last year's Rookie of the Year, Ben Simmons, Donovan Mitchell. Yeah, Ben Simmons, Rookie of the Year. I give it to him. Who do I want for future? I want Donovan Mitchell. So I think people get too wrapped up in future, present, what have you done for me lately? That's my opinion. And although I want Trae Young in the future, Luka's my guy for Rookie of the Year. You going to give me any pushback on that, Marv?
No, I agree with everything you said there. Like I said, originally I was, infatuated with Luka Doncic. At one point, I even wanted the Knicks to draft him. I mean, I told you how I thought he was great, but and I knew he was going to come into the league, based off everything I've seen from him when he played in the Euro leagues. I saw how dominant and how great he was. He makes his teammates better, and he was a winner. And so I knew that was going to translate over to the NBA. And once I saw him play in the NBA, and he was out there, throwing dimes and scoring at will and doing what he wanted, I was like, man, this guy's special. But then the Trae Young thing happened right after the All-Star break, where this guy just caught fire like it was no one's business, and he hasn't looked back since. I mean, his team is, it's not really good, but the games where, he drops like 40 points, 30 points, they normally win. So obviously you could tell that the Hawks need to rely more on Trae Young, and if the offenses start running more through Trae Young, I think he's eventually we're gonna put him in the same conversation as Stephen Curry is one of the best shooters in the NBA history.
Absolutely, that's exactly why why I'm taking him in the future, because he is going to be one of the best shooters in NBA history. I agree with that, and he's going to be one of the most dangerous shooters in NBA history, and it's going to change a franchise, I foresee, in Atlanta if they can surround him with other players. By the way, they have the Mavericks' first pick as long as it falls outside of the top 5, and it's projected at 6 right now. So you're going to be able to not only have him, but add another player because of that trade you made. It's looking pretty smart. It looks stupid. A lot of people jumped on it too quickly. I was always telling you, wait a minute. It's going to take time for this guy's game to develop in the NBA. And here we are. It's developing. It's developing at a rapid pace. So I'm really looking forward to watching both of them play, but really excited about Trae Young specifically. Marv, I want to finish with this. What's a show without some NFL as we approach the NFL season? There's a lot of reports out there, as it's been for a while. The Cardinals are on Kyler Murray, not Josh Rosen train. They're on the Kyler Murray train. There's a lot of talk about where Rosen will be traded. I've always really liked Rosen. I've been a big fan of his from day one when he was drafted. I don't think a lot of the problems in Arizona was his fault, but at the same time, you got a new coach. The coach wasn't the guy when they drafted him, so the coach wants another guy. You got to make it work for your franchise. So I totally see and understand why they'd shift gears. Marv, what's going on in the trade world for Josh Rosen?
So based on my sources, I'm hearing the Washington Redskins have the best offer on table for Josh Rosen. Now, other teams are also really interested in him. I've heard the Giants and the Patriots are still in the running, but they need to up their offers. Right now, the Skins have put up the best offer. I don't know what picks they're offering, so I'm assuming they're offering maybe a second-round pick. I know the Cardinals are asking for a first-round pick, which is obvious because it still hasn't been done yet. If the Redskins probably would offer the first-round pick, I'm sure that trade would have been done already. So I'm wondering if they're waiting for the draft to come around to make Kyler Murray the first pick, and then see what the best offer they can get for Rosen at that time. But at the moment, based on my sources, what they're saying is the Skins are the favorites right now to land him. It's heating up. His trade market is heating up. Chargers was a team that was interested in him, but I think the Cardinals asking price is too rich for them, so they've kind of cooled off on that right now. So we'll see what happens. The draft is in a couple of weeks, Today's the 6th. So yeah, about 2-3 weeks the draft is going to be happening. We'll see when the fireworks go off.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as it gets closer to the draft. And I certainly think a move will be made. It's been floated out there that the Cardinals are just bluffing to try and get somebody to trade for the first pick, but I think only they are in love with Kyler Murray. I think a lot of people like him, but I don't think anybody's in love with him like they are from what I'm hearing. I want to get into this. It would be such a Patriot move to trade for him, trade their first round pick. And I know you're saying they want a first round pick. The Patriots have a 32nd pick, and the Patriots are all about acquiring value. So they have a pick that they could trade. They could trade the 32nd pick for last year's 10th pick. And Rosen was the type of prospect that people trade 2 first round picks to move up for. So you're going to trade the bottom, the last first round pick, which, by the way, the Patriots have 12 picks this year. So trading away the first round pick that they have is not a big deal. It shouldn't be. Belichick is always one to find players in later rounds. And let's face it, he puts together Tom Brady and a bunch of spare parts and they win Super Bowls. He needs a quarterback. He doesn't need a lot of pieces outside of that. And this would seal up the Patriots' future. You take a smart, borderline brilliant guy like Josh Rosen. We can debate his talent all you want, and I think that's all there. I think it's A-level talent, but he's certainly a super bright guy, almost too bright on certain accounts. He questions things too much. He thinks too much. I've heard a lot about that, but he certainly fits the Boston way, the Patriots way, the smart way of doing things. Tom Brady's never been the most talented guy, but he's the GOAT. He's the best that there is. So when you're able to learn from Tom Brady for a couple years, God only knows when Tom Brady's going to retire. The Patriots don't know when Tom Brady's going to retire. Tom Brady doesn't know when Tom Brady's going to retire. So it's time to stop speculating about that. That's a dead topic. So we don't know when he's going to retire. But if you're able to pick up Josh Rosen, you have an insurance plan for one, because Brady's getting old. And number two, you have somebody to take over for the future. And if it didn't work out, learning under Brady's worth a lot. They could probably flip him for a first or second round pick at worst by creating a lot of buzz around him like they did for Garoppolo, who they basically gave away because Brady didn't want him, as it's been reported. Marv, shouldn't the Patriots go ahead and get the deal done? Isn't this not, am I off here? Is this not the most Patriot thing to do?
I mean, it got Patriots all over it, basically. You would think that's the Patriot thing to do. And I think they probably could be the ones that end up ultimately getting Josh Rosen. It all depends on what the Redskins are willing to do and give up. Now, if the Redskins are really desperate, I could see them trading their first round pick, and then that could get the deal done. But if the Redskins don't offer a first and the Patriots do, I think the Cardinals should pull the trigger and trade them to the Patriots. At least they'll be trading them outside of their conference, and they wouldn't have to deal with them if, in the coming years. You trade them to the Redskins, they'll be in the NFC, and then you probably will see them in the playoffs if the Redskins ever get to that point. Now, I think at the end of the day, the best move will be to the Patriots. It would be best for both parties, as in Josh Rosen, and for the Patriots, as in Josh Rosen will get to learn behind an all-time great. He will go over to a team that has a winning culture. He will get to learn what it takes to win, and he will be coached up by one of the best in the business, and Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. And I think that would be great for his growth. And he knows that he would like that. Plus, Josh Rosen's family's from the East Coast. Not a lot of people know that. He did grow up in California, but his grandparents live in Philadelphia. So Josh Rosen grew up as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. So that would actually put him closer to home as well. He could visit his grandparents and his family members who live in Philadelphia. And I think that's why the Patriots would be a really good fit for him.
Marv, you're a DC native. You should know the Redskins are always desperate. They live in desperation.
That is true.
But
I feel for that.
I want to make a note on that. Here's the thing: the Redskins, and here's what I foresee happening. Even if the Redskins do make the best offer, Josh Rosen is going to instruct his agent to block a trade to the Redskins at any way that they can. Because here's why: you have Josh Rosen, a really smart guy, being traded to, or potentially being traded to, one of the dumbest franchises. That marriage doesn't work. You're looking at marrying a smart guy with a dumb team. Just like a regular marriage, smart people and dumb people doesn't always work out unless there's money involved. A lot of marriages don't work out, period. So I think that the fit the fit is going to be a lot better, like you said, to his happiness. It's going to be better for his development, and it's better when all parties get something of value. And you're looking at, okay, the Cardinals get a first-round pick. They're happy. The Patriots get their future quarterback for a pretty good bargain. They're happy. And Josh Rosen is happy. You don't want to, as we've learned in modern sports now, an unhappy player is a really bad place to be. So I'm going to stick my neck out there and make a prediction that Rosen will not be on the Redskins. I'm not saying he's going to be on the Patriots. The Giants are certainly a contender, I think, in the weeds there if they don't really love one of these quarterbacks, and they're starting to host them and starting to really get down to figuring out who they want, and they're going to need somebody this year. I can't foresee a future where the Giants don't draft a quarterback or pick somebody up like Josh Rosen, but hey, they're the Giants. They're apparently just mortified by Eli Manning. I don't know what Eli Manning's holding over them, but they're afraid to move on as it's been so far. So we'll see what happens, but it's certainly going to be an interesting thing to pick up in the next couple of weeks and figure out what happens there. I want to thank everybody for listening. Like I said, don't forget to follow us on social media to keep up with us on the week. Let us know what you think about our takes. We want to hear your takes. So again, thank you everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. See you later.
See you later, everyone.